you go ahead.
Very much, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. My first question is to Dr. Sukera. Dr. Sukera, I want to dig a little deeper on bullying in schools, the bullying that Muslim boys and girls experience. I wonder if you can comment on the role that social media plays in this context, especially given the fact that the Senate will sometime in the next year receive a bill from the House of Commons around social media and hate. I wonder if you can help us in that context.
So certainly we have seen the unfettered proliferation of hate due to a lack of accountability from many social media platforms. That's an issue that legislators in the United States are also contending with. And there are common sense, evidence based ways to hold such companies better accountable. In terms of what happens at the ground level for young people, again, I have to speak with humility because I live and exist in a different digital sphere than, for example, many of the young people I work with, my own children included. What we do know from the evidence and from literature is that messages are transmitted now in ways that proliferate beyond anything we've ever seen or experienced. And so, how that's changed the dynamics is that a generation ago, if a child experienced identity based bullying, which happened and continues to happen, they could go to another school. They could find a fresh start. But that's simply not the case anymore, where kids find that such bullying, such messages, the permanence of it follows them wherever they go. It leads to a profound amount of mental distress, and it compounds the effect of existing mental health difficulties and challenges and trauma, particularly racial and identity based trauma that young people experience. There is work that is going on to help better educate young people about the toxic effects of online spaces, bullying, mobbing, and other such forces. But certainly that doesn't get to the root of the problem, which is that hateful messages are permitted and allowed to continue to proliferate, foment violence. And the other aspect of this is that there's an intentional narrative that demonizes Muslim Canadians that continues to proliferate through social media without accountability.
Thank you. If I have do I have some time?
Yes.
My question is for Miss Jackson Best. I am intrigued, Miss Jackson Best, to find out from you whether our federal government collects data on Muslims who are Black. And if no, then how do you get your data, and what pointers can you give to the federal government in looking for this kind of disaggregated data?
It's a great question. Based on what I do understand and what I do know, our census does collect information about religion, and it obviously collects information about race. That information can be collected and aggregated to indicate how many people may be Black and Muslim. But it really does take statisticians and more specifically people who know how to analyze census data to get that information. So when we were doing the research project about Black Muslims in Canada, we had to actually contract out to a statistician who had specific experience with census data to indicate how much of the Muslim population was actually Black and Muslim. And so, I think that it would be a great opportunity and idea for our federal government to be collecting this data so that it's more easily accessible and that we can put our hands on it a lot easier. But at the same time, we also know that census data or the census itself is not always taken up by communities of color for fears of surveillance and safety, and it won't always capture the appropriate numbers or the accurate numbers. So I think that it really does it is going to be important for our federal and our provincial governments to work with scholars, researchers, professors, etc., like Jasmine Zina, Wilfred Laurier, who has the Islamophobia industry research project to guide our governments towards better data collection, better collection of race-based data, of course, is incredibly important, and we don't see that quite enough. And it's been definitely an area of contention since I was a grad student, and has followed me throughout my career as well, trying to fill those gaps.